Good evening, everyone. My name is Doug Forbeck. I'm the Community Development Director for the City of Wentzville. We haven't had a program like this for a little while. It's a homeowners association symposium. I think the last one was in 19, and a lot of things have been happening in the world. We usually have them every couple of years or something of that nature. So we have paused for a little while, but we're glad to be back and certainly welcome a great amount of residents here, and we're happy that you're here joining us. I think we got a pretty good program for you tonight. We got some legal counsel representative. We have an insurance representative. We have our law enforcement centers, our officers are going to talk a little bit. We have some stormwater conversation. Director of Public Works, Sue Spiegel, is going to talk about a chipper program and traffic flow management. And then the neat thing, I think it's kind of neat, is we have these breakout sessions. We've got all these different tables in the back where you can just kind of drift around and speak to our building department, speak to Meridian Waste, St. Charles County Ambulance District, finance folks are here, Parks and Recreation, things of that nature. So welcome. Without further ado, Alderman LaBelle is here. Alderman Hayes and the mayor. There's Alderman Hayes, City Administrator Doug Lee, Planning Manager Chuck Senzi, Jessica Hoffman, Assistant City Administrator. All kinds of professional staff is here. So we're definitely during that breakout session, you can find anybody in this room with a tag on. If you got a question, you want to know something about the city. I've worked here for a long time. I'll be happy to talk to you, and I usually know most topics. If I don't, I'll find somebody that does. Okay. Stephen Davis is our first speaker tonight. Carmody McDonald, PC, going to talk on some HOA best practices. Stephen, welcome. Stephen's been with us before, so we're happy to have him back.
Thanks, Doug. All right. Whoops. Thanks. Let's see how we make sure we get this all set up here. Are we up there? No. Oh, there we go. All right. Well, thank you, Doug, for having me back. I was last here in 2019 at the last one of these that we did. We thought we'd be doing it the next year, and then we didn't. So it's good to be back. And thank you for having me. Thanks for organizing this and for all the city various departments and everyone elected that's here, and for you all joining us tonight. It's great to have the opportunity to kind of do these educational things out in the community and talk to you about this. And I've only got 15 minutes, so I'm going to try to keep it quick. And I know we're hearing from a lot of people, and lawyers have a tendency to talk too much. So just wave at me and tell me to, move it along. Just kick me, whatever you got to do. My name is Stephen Davis. Like Doug said, I'm an attorney at Carmody McDonald, a member of our condominium and homeowner association practice group there. We represent about 250 or so or more communities around the area now, throughout, greater St. Louis area, some across river in Illinois. And, we've really kind of grown this over the years through trying to be a responsive member of your team. And I know we've got some clients that are here tonight as well. So thanks for joining. And it's just, we like to be there to, answer these questions and do these educational things and help work with you. So hopefully you can learn a few things tonight. I've got some business cards in the back with Kathy from CAI, who's here, the Community Association Institute. And I know Jim will have more to say about that too, but please come go visit her back there as well. So to keep things moving. Oh, and I told my oldest daughter that I would tell you I was wearing this pink tie tonight for her. She makes sure that I always leave the house with something pink on. So there we go. So I always like to start these off by saying, what are homeowner associations legally? Well, first, they're creatures of statute. All right. And so what that means is there's actual codified law that deals with homeowners associations and how they operate. So for a lot of them, we're talking about the Nonprofit Corporation Act, Section 355. And that's a body of law that governs how nonprofit corporations operate. It fall back in a lot of ways for if there's not other things in your governing documents. But I don't know are there anyone that's here from a condominium association tonight, or you think you might be? Okay, maybe. What's villas? Okay, so I'm not going to talk more in great detail about condos since we're not dealing with that, but they have their own a separate body of law. In Missouri, unlike across river in Illinois and in other states, there's no homeowner association or common interest association act in Missouri, although there are some new statutes that we're not going to go into detail about tonight that deal with HOAs. They're also creatures of contract, and that's because any of your communities have recorded documents, a declaration, an indenture, a CC&R. And that means that it's something that binds all the owners, and it runs with the land. And that's what that means is it's there in perpetuity. You don't have to receive it. You don't have to sign a copy of it. It's a contract that's recorded and it binds all owners regardless of having received it, read it, anything. And so it's there. Now, there are also some unrecorded documents for your community that a lot of times you'll have like rules and regulations or policies or other things like that, which are a little bit different and don't really run with the land and need to be provided to owners regularly. But those are other types of documents or contracts that we're talking about that govern these communities. And by the way, I didn't say at the beginning, I don't know if we've got time for questions while we're doing this, but it's always a lot more fun if you got questions. I want to make sure I'm answering them. So please just interrupt, raise your hand, and let's talk about it. A lot of these communities are also nonprofit corporations. That's why that act would apply. And so if you're a nonprofit corporation, that means there's articles of incorporation that are actually available on the Missouri Secretary of State's website. And so that's another type of document that we look at. And I like to kind of give all this at the beginning because we all kind of come at this with different backgrounds. And when you buy a home in a community and and then you volunteer to run for the board, you don't maybe know what you're getting into, or maybe someone in your neighborhood maybe put you up for it. And you're like, I guess it's my turn. I'll help out. And, we respect you for it. And then you find out there's a lot more responsibility there. And so when, us as lawyers, when we get these sort of things and questions come in the door, we're answering these questions, trying to figure out who you are, what you need, and what the law is that binds you. So we heard about villas a minute ago, but when we're talking about what law applies, we want to know what your community is, because in Missouri, the really important distinction is whether or not you're a condominium, because we know what sort of law there applies. There's no separate law for villas in Missouri, although we'll hear about insurance. For villas, we're really talking about just another type of homeowners association. Usually Section 355 Nonprofit Act is applying, but not necessarily. We're going to focus a lot on the governing documents, that indentured declaration of CC&R. Probably not anybody from a co-op in the room either, so we won't talk about that. Also matters where you are, right? Like I said before, we deal with communities in Missouri and in Illinois. So we want to know what jurisdiction you're in. And when you're in Wentzville, I was talking to Doug about this earlier. I remember when I was here in 2019, there were some code revisions that were happening. So we also look at your local codes and how those influence things and what that's going to look like. So we want to know where you're located so we can make sure we're talking about the right law. So let's talk a little bit about the powers and duties of your association and on your board or your trustees. Those documents that we've been talking about, the contract, the statutes, that's governing law for your community. And it tells us what you have to do and what you have, authority to do. And we want to make sure that as a board, you're operating within your areas of authority, because we don't want to, you might hear about this from Jim in a little bit, we don't want to be going outside of those areas of authority. We got to act within that area. And so when we talk about those governing documents, sometimes we're talking about things that you're required to do. And a lot of times you'll see language like shall, or other times we're talking about things that you maybe can do or don't have discretion. It says may, right? And so we want to look at those things just to be able to see what you've got to be doing, and it's important because you have a role that you've been elected or appointed to serve in, and there's obligations on that. And we want to make sure that you're complying and doing your job, carrying out your role in a way that, one, you're not going to get any legal trouble. This is a volunteer job. We want to keep everyone, doing the right thing, but we also want to do right by your community that you've chosen to serve. So I put discrepancies and contradictions next, and that's really because we're talking about within these documents, there's different types of documents. We want to, sometimes these were written by a lawyer. Sometimes a lot of yours are going to be newer, but sometimes they're older. They're confusing. They use too much legalese. The lawyers see some laughs. The lawyers could have written them a little bit better, whoever wrote it. But we want to make sure we're reading these carefully and we're reading them for what they mean. And, when we're talking about, a hierarchy of documents, then if you're, a lot of times we see, especially with HOAs, that they want to develop rules. Right? You want to have rules for your community that kind of better explain the declaration that's hard to read and give people instructions. Well, we got to make sure that when we're doing that, we're within the powers that you have. One of the things I see a lot is trying to regulate things that a board, we want to control what happens on in their front lawn, or we want to, we want to put fines on things for violations. Well, some communities can, but it's important that your documents actually give you the authority to do that. Otherwise, we're cleaning up a problem down the road, and it's better to get it right at the beginning. And another thing I see a lot of, and that's why I put it at the end, is boards will come to us and have questions or want answers to things. And it's like, feels like something's missing. So, it's good to make sure that and I see some nods back there. It's good to just make sure you've got everything, and a title company can be a great resource to help you with that. So if you're a member of a nonprofit, most communities are set up as nonprofit corporations. And so if you're a board member or you're a member of that nonprofit board, and as such, you're serving on behalf of the owners and you have fiduciary duties. And so when we talk about fiduciary duties, we're talking about a duty of care and a duty of loyalty. And I'm going very quickly because of the time limit, and I could talk for, an hour on each of these parts, but, a duty of care means that you're acting like an ordinarily prudent person would in that circumstance. Are you, kind of using your judgment to act appropriately in whatever it is that you're doing? And in a duty of loyalty, we're talking about, are you acting with the best interests of the association, of the subdivision, not for your own self or, your, close neighbors or your friends in the subdivision, but are you acting in the best interest of everybody? And so if you are, then we talk about the business judgment rule. And this applies for, for-profit corporations too. But are you acting, if you're acting and making decisions within that space, maybe you're relying on experts in that space to help you make that decision. You talk to your insurer, you talk to an engineer, then we're going to say you're using good business judgment. And so if you're sued for the decisions you make, it's like, well, you acted reasonably. You didn't hire your cousin to do the project because you're getting a kickback. You did what the right thing to do was. And so you're probably not, even if that decision turns out to be bad, sometimes, as we know, businesses sometimes make bad decisions, and that offers you some protection. So we want to make sure that we're doing that. I put avoiding conflicts of interest on there as well. And the other thing that some communities don't have, especially when they're newer, that we want to make sure of, and Jim may talk about, is that you have directors and officers, insurance, and are otherwise properly insured, and talking to an insurance professional like Jim to make sure that you have what you need to protect yourselves and protect your community. I say directors and officers insurance because we're talking about board members, and oftentimes that insurance is there to protect you as a board member, again, volunteering, you're not getting paid for this role, in the event you get sued about the decisions that you make in that role. And I'm talking about this very generally, but yeah, go ahead.
For a brand new HOA.
Yep.
And we had discussions about this. What is the right amount of liability in aggregate for each officer?
Sure.
And it depends on the number for one street subdivision, 21 lots versus some subdivisions that have 600 homes. Does that change the number?
And that would be a better question for Jim. What I will say is that you should, unless you want to have a quick answer, go for it.
No, I mean, I think for your size community, a standard general liability policy is going to have $1 million per occurrence, 2 million in the aggregate. Then get a standalone directors and officers policy for $1 million. Maybe look at $1 million umbrella that sits on top of the rest of it. See if the cost makes sense. But I think for 21 single family homes, assuming you have no pool or common ground or lakes, you have a retention pond, you might want to, those carry higher risk. So those are the types of things, and I'll talk about this.
Okay. Thanks. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's some good advice, and, ultimately you want to make sure that, for a subdivision, any subdivision really, but especially if you're, new and coming out, and we'll talk a little bit about developer control coming out of that in a minute. You want to make sure that you have, like I said a minute ago, experts you can rely on. So if you don't have an insurance broker that you're working with, talk to somebody like Jim and, make sure that you're getting that advice that you need and making sure that the insurance that you get is appropriate for your size and for your community. There's a lot of brokers in town that sell insurance, right? But you want to make sure that you have somebody that has specific knowledge to what an HOA needs, because that's different than insuring your car or yourself, a lot of other things that we deal with.
Regards to retention pond, not that city, we require any sign, warning, drowning, possibilities, things like that. If we did on our own signage up, would we limit it if our allowed owner?
I don't know that the insurance company would really care, would they?
Depending on the size, they might require signage.
Okay.
It depends on the insurance company and the size of the body of water. I would do it anyway.
I mean, a lot of times what you're talking about is what you can do. you're talking, you're talking about two different things here. What can we do to protect ourselves from liability, but also what can we do to protect the kids in the neighborhood from getting hurt, right? So we want to make sure that we're taking care of. Yes, sir.
What's your recommended time frame? Homeowners that not paying their
How much are your assessments annually? So I mean, you're doing a cost benefit analysis on a lot of this. I don't like waiting too long, and assume for your assessments on an annual basis, you're talking about a number of years before it gets to an amount that's sizable that you'd want to be incurring, costs in a court, for example. Part of what we deal with is collections of delinquent assessments all the time. And I've got an associate and paralegal in our office that are great at that. And, I try to stay out of it as much as I can to keep, those costs down on it. But your documents likely allow you to, charge back those attorney's fees and to go, right. So, I mean, you don't want to wait too long because then word gets out, right? People here around the neighborhood, I'm not paying mine. And I've actually seen it kind of when you're looking on a map, kind of spread around a cul-de-sac, and then you're going to have to re-educate the community that you got to pay your bills. So I would make sure that, if someone's late, that that you're either internally, or if you have a property management company, sending letters first. That way you have a record of that before you send it to an attorney. An attorney is going to send an initial letter under the Federal Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, which is actually now a form statement that'll go out to the owner that says, here's what's due. And, in my experience, most people respond to that initial letter because they realize, oh, they have an attorney. They must now be serious. I don't want to have to pay more to the attorney too. So yeah, I mean, I'd send that letter, but after that, you might go ahead and record a lien, and we always send them a copy of the lien so they see what that is. I think most people don't really understand what a lien is, but they know it's not good. So we always mail it out. But you might hold off longer until you file a lawsuit because there's just the principal amount's pretty low. But again, how many years are you supposed to wait? So I have Ultra-Virus Act on there, and that's Latin for if you're acting outside of your authority. And so that's one of those things we want to, again, when you're reading your governing documents, you want to make sure that you're acting within the scope of the authority that those documents provide you. Because if you're acting ultra-virus, you may not have these other protections that are otherwise in the law that would protect you for the decisions that you make. So just generally at the end, fulfill the obligations you've got, do the job that you've agreed to volunteer for, and try to stick within that sphere. It's harder than I'm summarizing it right now. So some common issues. Yeah, go ahead. Well, we're getting there. Meetings, almost every community is going to be required to have an annual meeting. Right, and you as an owner, if you're a board member and the rest of the board saying, I don't care and I don't want to, and it's, let's not bother with it. Or last time we had it, nobody showed up, or that sort of thing. You hear a lot about that. It's incumbent upon owners to volunteer and get involved in the board, because if they're not having meetings, they probably don't care that much. Or, I mean, if nothing else, you have a right to a court-ordered meeting. I hope it doesn't come to that, but a court would order meetings because that's required under your documents. But, you can certainly gather signatures from your neighbors and call for a special meeting, and we can talk about that more in a minute too. But that's another avenue that I've helped people with before, where the board won't call a meeting. Usually if you get a percentage of your neighbors to sign off on a petition, you send it in and deliver it to the board. They've got to actually call that meeting within a time period. And if they don't, you can do it yourself. And then that's a legal meeting. Yeah. You don't have to have a lawyer to do it. No, I mean, a lawyer, I've helped people through the process because it's a little bit confusing, and you're reading the declaration or indenture and you're reading the statutes to make sure you're following the right steps. But you can do it yourself. Right. Well, that's pretty frustrating, and I can hear your frustration. There's certain obviously information and records that you're entitled to as an owner in the subdivision. Certain things that you're not, right? I mean, but generally there's a lot of things that you are. And someone's got to answer for it. And there would be regular meetings you could attend and say, hey, I need this, but you could submit something in writing to the board and the management company and request records. Yes, ma'am.
Jumping off of Twitter, especially since Tom was mentioned, when it comes to generalized HOAs, I've always been taught things need to be put in writing. We never agreed when we were sitting in anything. I was writing, she was writing to the board, and we actually haven't had any confirmation other than neither the board member. If there's nothing in writing, what are we really obligated to do, or what do we really us to this? If there's nothing in writing detailing the board members.
So, I mean, elections are supposed to happen at that annual meeting and usually either, one or, if you have a 3-person board, it might be staggered, but, turnover and there will be minutes. I mean, these are all the things that should properly happen. You're saying that didn't happen, so it's not really all that helpful to hear about what didn't happen. But, I mean, yeah, if there's no minutes, I mean, you want to see what the records are. So supposedly somebody received ballots and counted them, and there should be some record of that, and you should be able to ask your property man, if you were elected and they say you're the board now, you should be able to, if you're the board, the records are yours and you're entitled to all of your records.
So as long as we have some sort of notes or documentation, we don't actually have to sign anything.
Oh, you don't have to sign. I mean, your documents could require something. I've seen older documents that require board changes to be recorded, but that's unusual. No, that's right also. So if you're a nonprofit corporation, they're usually filing annual or biannual. You should be filing annual or biannual statements with the state. And so that would actually list the directors and the officers in the statement. But again, somebody would have to be filing that. And usually the management company is going to do that for you. So that should say something also, but that's kind of a separate type of corporate record. Sure. So it was mentioned before, declarant and developer control. Obviously, that's something a lot of communities that are newly built will go through. The community is being built out, it finishes, and then it's turning over. And that can be a confusing time for boards because you've been kind of being run by the developer. Maybe there's some things that you want to take over and it's now transitioning. And how's that going to turn over? Well, we're going to look at, again, your governing documents. I'm going to sound a little bit like a broken record. That indenture is going to tell us when that turnover happens. And I know that was one of the things that Wentzville was requiring. I believe, didn't you guys kind of speed up the process on turning over development? Good. Right. And so that's something specific for that Wentzville did, and others could probably pick that up a little bit more, which would be helpful where, you're sometimes in some communities, you're waiting for that very last house to sell and get an occupancy permit before the board can actually take over control. And until that happens, the developer's holding on to control. Well, that can be a problem, obviously, for getting your community running, especially, I mean, that was a change y'all were dealing coming out of the last recession, I think, right? Yeah. Yeah. So, and sometimes you're dealing in those situations with successor developers and who's the right contact for that. But and sometimes we also hear, especially in homeowner associations, we're hearing about builder defects in in pools or community rooms and things. So one of the things that I like to bring up when communities are transitioning, if it makes sense, is there's engineering companies that will do a transition study that will actually look at your common element features and kind of review those for you to make sure everything kind of is up to code and up to par. And, because just so that and have peace of mind that everything's taken care of. One of the other things I also see that I just, kind of thinking of bringing up while you're in that transition is, you kind of assume that your common ground has been properly deeded to the association. And so when the developer leaves, that common ground is yours. That doesn't always happen. Obviously, I mean, not to besmirch anybody who might work in development in the room, and I'm sure there's some folks here, but sometimes, obviously the developer's trying to sell homes and, move on to the next project, right? And so sometimes that's one of those things that gets left behind. So it's a good idea to make sure that your common ground is properly conveyed, because otherwise you'll be like some clients of mine who years later that developer will have a bankruptcy or otherwise some other financial problems, and then your common ground is somehow caught up in their financial situation. So I was asked to talk about maintenance tonight. Also, a couple different topics there. Your documents, again, broken record, are going to tell you who's responsible for certain maintenance. A lot easier in a homeowner association situation, but not always. Sometimes, people always come into owning a home saying, my home is my castle. I do it. Don't tell me anything about it. Well, a lot of our communities aren't that way. We have, someone mentioned villas in the back, but even some single family home owner associations that we represent, the association's responsible for some exterior maintenance or roofs, that sort of thing. And so that means that those obligations and those are shared. Your home is not just yours to, take care of. The association has a role in there and can dictate certain things, whether you like it or not. And, most people don't read those declarations on the way in. Maybe more people should, but ultimately, if the subdivision has a responsibility for the exterior, you're gonna have to get involved and say, here's what we're doing. We're gonna do these roofs, and all the roofs are happening because it's time. The roofs are of a certain age, and we're doing them all at once because we have cost savings that way. And we're getting a good deal, good warranty, what have you. And everybody's gonna have to, pay their share, and whether they like it or not, because that's what the authority you have. Or maybe you take care of the exterior. You have architectural control, which is the next topic there. People might not like it, but they may have to come to you for approval. And that's there for a reason, to maintain standards in the community, whether it's color, appearance, what have you. See that a lot with pools, fencing, that sort of thing, coloring, that sort of thing. And you want to make sure that you're, taking the steps to do that appropriately, so that you don't have problems down the road, because you can get into issues there where people make changes that aren't appropriate. The Missouri legislature, one of those new laws that recently went effective in January, it deals with solar panels. And we're hearing a lot more about solar panels all the time these days. And these maintenance distinctions are important in that regard, because the statute allows for homeowners to have solar panels on roofs that they own and maintain. Okay, and that's important. Statute, not to get into too much detail on solar panels, but the statute does not allow ground mounted arrays. That's something the association can regulate and forbid if they have control over those areas. But roofs, the Missouri legislature says you have to allow them on roofs if the owner maintains and controls it. But if it's an association maintained roof, then that's a different situation. So that's something I would point out. So a big concern that we're dealing with, especially for our condo clients, but also in homeowners association, is a great thing for new. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
What if you didn't have that in your, or so you put it to the vote of the people in the subdivision and they voted not to?
So if the question's about, and I should have, sorry, I've been repeating some of the earlier questions. The question's about, what if you don't want your neighbors who all get together and vote, we're not going to do solar panels? Well, the Missouri legislature has spoken for you, and the Missouri legislature says if you own your roof, oh, I'm sorry, I just pushed the button on here. If you own your roof, you have a right to put a solar panel. Okay, and if you actually want to step forward, because a lot of our client communities would say, okay, we'll allow solar panels. We don't want them on the street front facing side of the house. The new statute says you've got to allow solar panels in the way that is going to be essentially the most effective for capturing solar power. But there are regulations and limitations, and that's something we've dealt with a lot of our communities is putting those sorts of restrictions in. January 1st. Yeah. And I'm gonna keep moving because I know you're coming closer because I'm supposed to be done. I'm sorry. Yeah. So yeah, reviewing contracts, another important thing. I was saying, large maintenance items, reserve studies is where I was going, an important thing, especially for new communities, brand new community. If you've got some amenities or some things that you take care of, whether your roads are private, you've got other like a pool, or you've got a community center or something in your property, you're going to want to look ahead of time. So, and what those reserve studies help you do is figure out what your future maintenance costs are going to be and how you can budget for it and reserve for it today. So you're not doing large special assessments down the road to fund your projects. We'll skip enforcement. You wanted me to talk about meetings. So let me put meetings up there. We heard some questions about meetings already. We get all that up there. So you have to have annual meetings. Boards should have regular meetings. Annual meetings are when you do elections. There might be special meetings for removals. You're going to be approving oftentimes budgets or financials at annual meetings. And those are things that need to be looked at. Boards also have meetings. Board meetings can happen when everybody can simultaneously hear each other. That means they don't have to happen in person. Owner meetings happen in person or by proxy. All right. And we could have a whole evening talking about that. So I'm going to move forward, but ask me your meeting questions. The main things I want to look for when we're talking about meetings to go very quickly are, was there proper notice of the meeting? Your documents and the statutes call for the timing of the notice, making sure you deliver it the proper way. Usually you're talking about mailing it out to the last known address in the right amount of time. And usually you're going to be telling people what's happening at the meeting, right? Obviously, you're telling them where, when, date, all that. But you need to be telling people what's on the agenda, especially for certain things. What are we talking about that night? What are we voting on? Quorum, right? Meetings have to have a quorum. That's the number of people that are required to be there to do business. And that could be in person or by proxy. And you want to know what your percentage is. And you want to make a plan in advance to make sure you're going to meet that. And for some communities, we've got great involvement. Others, we don't have as much. And you might be going door to door ahead of time or calling up your neighbors, emailing your neighbors saying, hey, can you turn in that proxy? And we can help with those forms and notices and everything else, but turn in the proxy so that we make sure that we've got what we need to be able to actually conduct business, to do a legal election, that sort of thing at our meeting so everything can move forward. Minutes are very important. People don't really understand minutes, but you need to take records. You're required under Missouri law to have minutes of your meetings, and you should have minutes. And there's we can have a whole discussion again on about minutes, but also what are the expectations for the meeting? Studies say your meeting shouldn't last too long, right? You're going to have a hard time getting more involvement in the future if your meetings run really long. You have lawyers like me coming talking too much. You want to make sure that you stick to that you have a plan. It also helps with getting future board members. You want to know how you're going to deal with what's going to be obviously on the agenda, how you're going to do voting, what's going to be voted on, who gets to vote. Is it by percentage? Does everybody have one vote? Are there proxies for voting? And how the meeting's going to be run? Do we have any sort of, security concerns? We need to call one of these uniformed gentlemen in the back to come out and be there, because I'm sure that's exactly what they thought they were training for when they signed up for that job, right, guys? But, we got to be careful about those things. And I've been to plenty of meetings where police have been there and we, people were very surprised how smooth things went, but we all know why. So, let's talk about all those things and have that out front and know what we're doing and know what the plan is and what we need to get done. Again, broken record, review those documents ahead of time. So, I've got printouts of slides and you've got a copy of them, so we can send this out, but I listed some tips on just how to, run a good meeting, because I think it's important, and I'm going to go too fast through it. So you're not going to see it. I'm not going to read it to you, but, and I said about minutes don't record the whole meeting. We're not taking a transcript. There's great court reporters out there that'll do that for you. That's not what this is. Here's some things that minutes should include. Is just these kind of, what are we voting on? What are the decisions that were made at the meeting? Those are the things that we're looking at. I've got stories. I'm sure Jim's got stories about meetings gone wrong, minutes gone wrong, where they come back to bite you later. The minutes are the record of the meeting. They're going to be coming up in court. And we want to make sure, I've seen them in trial where they're presented to a jury, where the board had recorded in their own minutes comments about the litigant that ended up suing them. Not ideal. And we can go on from there. I just have slides about how we can help, what lawyers can do, and things like that. My card's in the back. My name is Stephen Davis. I know I've gone very fast, especially to get through it now. Happy to talk more. Really enjoyed being here tonight. Thank you very much.
See, attorneys bill by every 6 minutes, so he had to drag that out, he's just.
If anybody wants to meet you out, lobby or something, just not for that, they can talk about this.
Well, I don't want to pull away from Jim, but I'm happy to answer questions after.
Well, because I now know our audience is mostly homeowners, single family resident homeowners associations, I'm going to cut part of my presentation. I'm going to fill a little bit of it, giving a plug. Kathy Roth Johnson is in the back there. She is the executive director of an organization called the Community Associations Institute. You'll see their logo up there. I happen to be the president of the board of the Heartland chapter of CAI, and we're the nation's leading advocacy group for community associations, including HOAs. We have hundreds of community leaders, volunteer leaders in our organization. So if you ever have the kind of issues that face HOAs on a daily basis and you don't know where to turn to, often Kathy can connect you with the right resources. So, and please consider joining. All right, I'm going to go really quick on this. how many are in villas or townhomes where you insure the buildings themselves? Okay, we just got a couple. I'll go really quickly through that. Directors and officers, I'm gonna probably spend the most time on that part, and then I'll talk about a couple other coverages. But the primary objective of every community association, HOA, is to protect, maintain, and enhance the assets of the community. So if you're in a single family resident, you don't want your home devaluing while you live there because your neighbors are running a junkyard in their front yard and the HOA is allowing it. I mean, that's the kind of thing why you set up an HOA. And frankly, HOAs can kind of be a pain in the butt sometimes. We don't like getting fine letters because we painted our front door purple. It's a pain, but those of you who are trustees here need to be able to run the HOA to maintain, protect, maintain, and enhance the assets of your community. That is your ultimate job. And if you're doing that, you should be protected in your role. And that's why directors and officers liability is something I'll focus on. Really quick, in 2023, the property insurance marketplace has suddenly collapsed in Missouri. This affects even those of you who are insure your homes as a single family home. I don't do personal insurance, but we're starting to see and hear about huge increases hitting in the coming weeks and months. So just keep that in mind. If you do insure assets for your community, you have property coverage, especially if you're a villa or a townhome where you're insuring the residential buildings. Pay really close attention to your property insurance renewal this year. The other thing, even with your own home, we all know about the inflation going on in the economy right now. A lot of insurance companies are mandating you increase the replacement cost value of your assets. I just saw one today, it was 40% increase, which means you got a 40% increase in your insurance costs. Oh, and they're going to raise your rates on top of it. So these are the kind of challenges we're facing right now. Again, just pay attention to that. I mean, and the reason they're doing it is their claims costs, because of construction price inflation, have skyrocketed over the last 18 months. I just showed you State Farm announced one of the the largest insurer in Missouri announced a $13.2 billion underwriting loss last year. So that's money taken. They paid $13.2 billion more than they took in premium last year. Not good. Not good. And that's why the rates are doing what they're doing. So I'm going to skip through this and because I want to focus on directors and officers liability. As volunteers for your community, you should not have your personal assets ever put on the line for a job you don't get paid to do. It's just not fair to you. Furthermore, most of your governing documents will have a clause that indemnifies the directors against any and all claims where you're making business decisions on behalf of the community. Sometimes the documents will even require that there be insurance to back up that indemnification of the directors. Directors and officers liability policies are not created equal. There's a lot of standardization in other lines of coverage. This is not one of them. So I have a list of coverages that everyone here should look out for in your directors and officers liability policy. The bolded underlined one, non-monetary damages. So, and I'll focus on this one because it accounts for about 60% of claims, yet a lot of policies exclude non-monetary damage type claims. And what that means is, let's say that, I like purple doors and I paint my door purple and, you trustee send that lovely notice saying, well, we don't allow purple doors here. And if you don't change it in 30 days, I'm going to fine you. They say, well, I like purple doors. I'm not doing anything about it. Well, then you start fining them. So they could sue you for the cost of painting their door over. But that's usually not what they do. Usually what a homeowner will do is they'll sue you or they'll seek an injunction to prevent you from enforcing a rule in your governing documents. They're not asking for money. They're asking for a court to tell you not to do something or to do something.
That is a non-monetary type claim. Make sure your directors and officers policy has this. If you have a policy that's just tacked on to your general liability coverage, you probably don't have this. Spend a little more money, and it's not a lot more. We might be talking a couple $100 a year. Get a standalone directors and officers liability policy with broad coverages, because you as volunteer leaders of your community deserve to be protected and have your assets protected. One of the areas we're seeing is a lot more discrimination and harassment claims. Neighbor versus neighbor. Two neighbors is, the Hatfields and McCoys live next to each other, and they go to you and say, do something. And you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? I'm just a board member. Well, they're harassing me. They're sexually harassing me. They're discriminating against me, and you didn't do anything about it. And then all of a sudden they're pursuing litigation against the association because you didn't step in between two neighbors who couldn't get along. We're seeing more and more of this. Make sure your D&O policy covers that. It's going to be excluded under most other type policies. And then also make sure if you have committees, a lot of people have beautification committees or architectural review committees, social committees, make sure that those committee members are protected as well. If you do get sued, know that even though you may have an attorney you already work with, the insurance company may get to choose their own. It's called panel counsel. I don't like it, but it is what it is. So we get asked that a lot. A lot of times Steven will be on one of my accounts and they'll get sued, and I'll say, well, now we got this other man or woman who maybe don't practice this type of law, but that's who the insurance company chose.
Some are great.
Some are great,
Some are not.
some are not. And we do try to intervene as the agent for the association, get someone knowledgeable. Crime or fidelity coverage. You're collecting dues, and even though this may go through a management company, neighbors want to trust neighbors, and sometimes that inherent trust leads to some neighbors, especially if they're getting into trouble with drugs or gambling, to take their neighbor's money and run with it. Does anyone know the number one area, the number one industry where embezzlement happens in this country? Churches. Yeah, churches, because again, you get a church board or a homeowners board, you inherently trust those people. And I'm not 99% of the time, they're great people, but that 1% may be in Vegas right now, blowing all your HOA's funds. And I have been through claims where that exact thing has happened. So make sure you have a crime or fidelity policy in place to protect your funds. We've had management company employees steal funds, and maybe the management company only has $500,000, and that manager stole from 10 communities and stole $1 million. Well, guess what? You don't get all your money back, and it takes a long time. So make sure you have your own policy. We had questions about how much coverage is enough. If you're a small HOA without a lot of common ground or assets, you might be okay just with your $1 million general liability policy, your $1 million directors and officers liability. Once you start getting water features, if you have a pool, if you have private roads, if you maintain sidewalks, just look at the price of an umbrella and make a business decision whether it makes sense to spend the money on it. $1 million claim is pretty common these days. Even 5 years ago, we didn't see a lot of them. Now it seems like they're happening all the time. So, just talk to your agent, and it's usually not expensive to get $1 million more in coverage for an HOA. Might only be a few $100s a year. So we're not talking about big dollar amounts. All right. I went quick because
Wow.
I knew there'd be questions. Yes, sir. Mhm.
And they also said in this case of Laurie, go after into the homeowner.
I don't do that work. I just.
Yeah. So I live in an HOA, and this happened to me. So we have 192 homes in my community, and we had someone seriously injured, and they did sue all of us individually because we had voted on a contract with a vendor, and they blamed the vendor, therefore it was our fault. here's what happens and here's what usually happens. That quickly gets thrown out. I didn't even submit it to my own homeowner's policy. In that case, the general liability coverage recognized that we're all members of a corporation. We were incorporated, by the way, which I think can make a difference, attorney.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you're not incorporated, I don't know if you have an opinion on that, but I like to see HOAs incorporated with the state.
A lot of your newer communities, which is why I didn't go into more, we didn't really have time to go into.
Yeah,
more,
right.
but a lot of your newer communities are set up as nonprofit corporations as an association. Some, if you're seeing the word trustee in your documents, or it's also an indenture of trust, you're probably set up as a trusteeship, which, you know, just like for companies, and we say you want to be incorporated, you don't want to operate it in your own name or a DBA. Same thing for your subdivision. If you've got a corporation, you've got that protection, among other things that are as a benefit to you.
Yeah, so again, if you're not incorporated, it's relatively easy and painless and inexpensive to do. That protects you as individual homeowners, because the courts and the defense counsel in our case basically defended all of us, but we were defended as the HOA, not individuals. Yes, sir.
Question about Steve and insurance. I'm associated with.
Yep.
Roofing is one big consideration, and it's not uncommon. 15-year, sometimes 20 years. These are shown to the insurance company that we have the finances to be able to take care of these rules. I'm hearing new worrisome comments that insurance companies collapse, where they used to be able to say, we're building our model based on replacing roofs at 20 years. Now we're hearing you better be able to start replacing your roofs at 15, maybe one company saying that it's 10 years.
I've heard 12. Yeah. Yeah. I've been talking to roofers a lot lately about this, and the weather patterns and the freeze thaw cycle and our extreme swings in weather here does degrade most shingles more quickly, and the insurance companies have caught on. And so even if you go further north or south in the United States, they're not having some of the same issues we are. Missouri is not a very we're not looked on too well by the insurance industry right now. We're getting picked on pretty hard, and the roofs are one of the main issues. So yeah, that I even noted this here. So we are starting to see carve outs for roof coverage.
And is that just as far as meaning that you won't get the replacement cost?
Yeah.
If the roof's too old, you may get some money for it on a depreciation basis, but you
Yeah.
won't get what you're looking for. If you have a storm that destroys your roof, you're looking to get it replaced, because you can't build a 10-year-old roof, right? And
Yeah.
That's what you're losing now, is you're not going to be able to get that new roof, because you're just going to get what your 15-year-old roof is actually now depreciated to be worth.
Yep. All right, I know there's a lot more of the program, so my contact information is here. I unfortunately have to run to a kid's sporting event, but Kathy knows how to get a hold of me. Feel free to reach out if you have any questions. Also, Kathy has coupons that these are usually $30 for a lunch program through CAI. Great programs. We actually had the O'Fallon yesterday, the O'Fallon Police Department out talking about safety in community associations. Every month we have a good program. So everyone grab a free voucher and please check out one of our future programs. So thank you, everyone.
And if you liked hearing from Jim and from me tonight, we hope you did. And you like hearing insurance horror stories, right? October 4th.
Yes, October 4th, I will be.
Jim and I will be presenting together at lunchtime at the Lodge in De Pere. And we would love to see many of you again, and maybe at a free coupon.
Absolutely. So thanks, everyone.
So the next item on the program is our Wentzville Police Department, Ben Childers and Jacob Smith, and we'll turn the floor over to these fine gentlemen.
Good evening, folks. I'm going to talk about some key issues that we've noticed recently and give you some tips that I think will help you prevent yourself becoming a victim. And then I'll turn the floor over. So when I think about, I'll speak up. So when I think of my home as my castle. And I try to fortify it as best I can to prevent becoming a victim or threats to me or my family. So at night before I go to bed, I have the same routine. I go around, I make sure my doors are locked, I make sure my windows are locked, make sure my garage door is down. I make sure that it's as secure as I can make it. So I would encourage you to do the same. That's one way you could prevent from having something bad happen to you. One thing we've noticed recently, criminals are looking for soft targets, easy opportunities. So if they see a car unlocked, they're going to go to that and they'll go pass over a car that's locked up and go to a car that isn't. So I would say before you go to bed at night, make sure your garage door is down. If your car's in the driveway, make sure the car is locked. Don't leave your keys in your car, which you think wouldn't have to be said, but you'd be amazed how many people do leave their keys in the car in an unlocked vehicle and then they wake up and their car is gone. Don't leave valuables in the car, especially in plain sight. And please don't leave firearms in the car overnight. People steal cars and then they have the car and the gun. So the issue just gets compounded. If you see something suspicious, don't hesitate to call us. We're always available, even if you think, I'm not sure if this really constitutes or if this is something I should be concerned about, call us and let us come check it out. Okay, that's what we're here for. That's what we do. There's a program that I'll mention, and it's through National Night Out, those of you who are familiar with National Night Out that we do every year. And it's called Dog Walker Watch, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's kind of like the modern take on Neighborhood Watch. You can go on National Night Out's website and enter your name and register, and everything you need will be on there. So if any of you are interested in that, I encourage you to do that. I think that's a good way for the neighborhood to get involved, for everyone to take a proactive approach to the safety of their neighborhood. All right. So in the interest of time, I have two ladies here from Flock Safety. The city has partnered with Flock Safety and we use their cameras around town to help us prevent crime and catch criminals before things happen. And subdivisions have come on board and several in the city have those cameras now. So I'm gonna have them come up and speak to you about Flock Safety, Miss Laura Ann Holland and Miss Chelsea McGowan. Ladies, come on up. Thank you, folks.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having Chelsea and I join you tonight. As Officer Childers said, we are with Flock Safety, a public safety technology company that provides a whole community solution for communities that are looking to improve safety. We actually sell to businesses, to neighborhoods, and directly to the police department. And our primary technology is a vehicle recognition device. And so that vehicle recognition device can really be a make or break in investigations for your law enforcement. And because it will, like Officer Childers said, notify if there's a vehicle associated with a stolen vehicle alert or a felony warrant anytime it's in your community in Wentzville. We also find that over 70% of crimes are actually committed with a vehicle. And so it's really helpful to have this data to do some investigative searches after the fact. Flock was actually founded primarily as a neighborhood company. So we started out by selling to neighborhoods. And so all of our product design, it takes that into account where we're coming at this as citizens, as residents who are trying to help law enforcement get the data that they need to solve crime, but we also care about things like privacy and accountability and making sure that the technology is used in the right way. And so in all of our partnerships, our customers own their information and they choose who they share it with. In Wentzville, you can actually share the images if you're a business owner or a HOA with the local police department so that they can have access to that data and be able to respond accordingly. And we also have a 30-day data retention. So that means that the images are only stored for 30 days and then they're indefinitely deleted. We've seen a lot of success in this area and police are able to use it to respond really quickly. Everything from unfortunate violent home invasions to catalytic converter thefts to retail theft. we've had police be able to really use this technology to make a difference. And we're happy to talk with you guys some more. And I think Chelsea's going to leave some of her cards so that if anybody is interested in exploring what a partnership and expansion of the partnership that we have with the police department could look like for your HOA or for your business, you'll be able to contact us. I'll take any questions that you guys have too. Yes. Oh, yeah. Yes, no, I understand. I think it's $2,500 is our standard rate for HOAs. And I think one thing to consider is that you're not just buying a single camera, right? You're really buying the tools for your law enforcement to connect to their entire camera network. So when you purchase the camera, your law enforcement are then able to use that and all the other cameras that they have to track anyone who has committed a burglary or committed a violent home invasion. That $2,500 is our standard price, but it's the full suite of services to software, data storage, all of those things. I believe 2, yeah.
Stolen vehicles, stolen license plates, several fuses, it's used, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, is to catch part of the your major.
So if there is an individual in a vehicle that is registered on the NCIC FBI list, so like stolen vehicle, for example, if a vehicle passes by that camera that's in your neighborhood and it was a stolen vehicle, within a minute, they're gonna get a real-time notification that that vehicle's entered that property.
That's somebody who's already been stolen, using it to try to steal mine. It's not gonna happen that quickly.
That has reported stolen. The success that we're having is that the city is team location. We have 8 units, so 350 for the city. So stolen car, just stolen car, that would come out good morning. Car body, my car phone for it. As it gets found, if you want to park, dispatch and it's a true force multiplier, and every 8 passes month or meeting for the emergency month, and we also kind of convert.
We put cameras up for going to red lights. Clearly, the officers have spoken about how important it is to them. The manufacturer, the distributor, is saying the same thing. Why is this not part of basic safety city providing citizens? Why are we having to pay for ourselves when it should be covered in the tax? There's cameras that are at intersection for accidents. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about the traffic signal cameras during the Public Works update.
Just last month, we had our run at 3 a.m. Would you be able to get access to the cameras if we like place stuff in and out even that time?
Yes, definitely. We see a lot of our neighborhood associations actually use it specifically for hit and run incidents.
So like Lauren said, if you're ever interested in looking at how it works on the internal side, like what does it look like when you have those images? I'll leave my card behind and happy to set up a demo if anyone is interested.
Yes.
$500 would
Per device.
Per camera. So it's dependent on how many cameras that you're interested in installing. Correct, yes.
Yes. Yeah, that's the great thing about our company. We treat our models as like a software as a service model. So you get our full suite of services, anything permitting related, anything regarding maintenance, health for the cameras. We have technicians that come out and make sure that everything is working properly and they're local to this area. So it's all encompassing with that $2,500 fee. Yes.
So it's $2,500 for each camera. And then $2,500 fee, your annual fee, is that correct?
So it's $2,500 per camera per year and then there's just a small installation fee of $350,
Oh, okay.
a one-time fee for installation
Yes.
per camera.
Thank you, sir.
Apologies, we don't have a presentation. We should have pulled one up. Sorry, guys.
One more thing before you leave, do anybody, see there's three, citizen police academy alumni, no, not already. So if anybody else is interested in how, police department works, please behind the scenes, promote, police department, so, from joining us, pick these things, you can, get shoot tasers, shoot our gun, you learn about the policy, we'll tell you all things. You mean right along anymore? My life over the computer.
Thank you all.
All right, thank you.
In the interest of time, I know we want to be respectful of everybody's time. We could take a couple minute break. If anybody needs a potty break, no, we're gonna move on. I see some head nods to move on. I like that answer. So the guide to stormwater basins, we have some excellent staff members here. Jamie Page, Kelly Dunlap. Kelly is making her way to the podium. And she'll tell you all about the things that you need to know on stormwater basins. Hi, Kelly.
Hello, everyone. So my name is Kelly Dunlap. I'm in the Stormwater Division under Engineering. I'm a stormwater specialist, and today I'm going to be talking to you about stormwater basins. Can I get or do I do it? Oh. So before we get started with the PowerPoint, everything in the PowerPoint is on this flyer, which we have in the back room over in this corner. So if you don't feel like you have to jot a lot down, everything's on here. We're also available for questions afterwards. I know that almost all HOAs have stormwater facilities. Oh, perfect. So if you have a specific question, we are more than happy to speak with you afterwards. All right, let's get started. So to begin, ownership and maintenance. So a lot of times when I come out to Common Ground, we are looking at what isn't functioning appropriately. So the city maintains public infrastructure that tends to be these more actual structure items, storm drains, outfall structures, these flared ends, all three shown here. If you have a question about one of them, you can put in a concern or you can give us a call and we can come out and take a look at it with you. What is the HOA or property owner responsible for? Property owners are responsible for general maintenance like mowing, debris removal. Property owners are also responsible for water quality facility maintenance, which is outlined in your covenant. We'll talk about that a little later. So during construction, we do review drainage areas and when the facilities go in, there is an inspection process. And then per our MS4 permit, not to get too technical, but it's basically something that we do under guidance of the state and requirements of the state. There are some inspections that we are required to do for water quality facilities. And we'll go into that specifically, what a water quality facility is a little bit later. As for if you're looking for help to do an inspection, you can certainly give us a call and we can assist in inspections as well. Okay, so what do basins do? The basins in our community collect rainwater from our storm drains. They provide flood protection, and newer facilities provide channel protection benefits and water quality improvements from rain runoff. And that is mostly just in newer facilities. We're going to go into each type of stormwater facility that are found commonly in residential communities. So detention basins, retention basins or ponds, and water quality facilities. There's a list of some common ones, but generally you're going to see stormwater ponds and bioretention, rain garden type of facilities. All right, so older subdivisions will have these dry detention basins. They are intended to fill up during a rain event and slowly let the water out. This helps prevent and manage flooding. These are intended to be dry. So if you're seeing standing water in them and you believe that it may be from the structure itself, you can give us a call and we can come take a look at it. If you are wondering what your HOA can do to fix and address other maintenance issues, you can also give us a call and we're more than happy to come out and take a look at these items with you. Oops. Let's use this. Retention basins and ponds, these permanently hold water. So those are the two big differences between the two, but generally there is still flood control and sometimes there is also water quality aspects to these types of facilities. These are some pictures of water quality facilities. These are mostly in the newer subdivisions, like I mentioned, and these do require an inspection once a year. We ask that the HOA provides that inspection annually. And if there is questions or need of assistance to know how to do these inspections, we are more than happy to do this. If you have a property management group, you can also inquire with them if they can help with those inspections. And we have those inspections online in an online portal, which I will get to in just a moment. Generally, though, these facilities are soaking up extra nutrients or helping filter out trash before it gets into the creeks in our community. So these are some keywords to look for if you're trying to find out if you have a water quality facility. I know that maybe it seems really clear here while I'm talking at this symposium, but in the field you might go, I am just not sure, and that's okay. If you have a water quality facility, you will have a stormwater facility maintenance covenant and an operation and maintenance plan. If you don't have those, or you're not quite sure what you're looking for, you can certainly give us a call and we can assist you as much as possible. We do have an inspection portal to do these inspections. If you have a dry detention or a retention pond, you can still do an inspection through this portal if you like. We do review these inspections, and if we notice some issues, we will schedule a meeting with the HOA. But generally, this is just to help you to know what to look for. You can also just look at the form if you're wanting to know what to talk with your property maintenance group. And so if you do have a required inspection annually, you can go down this list, click on the appropriate facility. Again, if you're not sure, give me a call. I get it. There's a lot of choices. And something like this little screen over here is going to pop up and walk you through the steps of the inspection. Yes. I'm not aware of any requirement for ponds. It is something that from like a maintenance perspective does happen at that frequency or maybe a little longer. If you would like to step back afterwards and inquire specifically, but I'm not aware of any of those types of situations where we would require that. Okay, we're almost done, I promise. All right. Well, second to last slide. Please contact us. You'll probably see me in fact, I think I've met with a few of you before. I'll come out, we'll take a look at your facility, walk around. I'm happy to come out anytime. We're actually entering into one of the best seasons to go look at your stormwater facility. I would say May is a great month to take a little stroll around your common ground. And if you would like to invite me, you're more than welcome to. And so if you're interested in training, if you're interested in knowing how to maintain things, whose responsibility is to maintain things in your common ground, if you think something may even be slightly amiss with one of your stormwater structures and infrastructure, please give us a call and we'll certainly come out and take a look at it. Lastly, we do have a good website. I'm currently reviewing some of the information on there right now. So if you have any feedback on it, I'll take it. But we have the inspection portal on there. We have information about local contractors that do the kind of maintenance work. We have native plant information. We have general contact information. We have opportunities for you to participate in. In the back, we also do have a frequently asked questions sheet. So I can mention a couple of these if you like, or you can come back and ask us and pick up one of these forms. And then I'd also like to just do a little shout out to the Wentzville Sustainability's Partners Program. It's something that a group of a committee of employees put together. There's a business version already rolled out. And today I'm announcing the next branch, which is the HOA version. It's essentially an expansion of the Adopt a Spot program. I don't know if any of you have participated in the Adopt a Spot program before, but it's mostly a litter pickup program where we will install signs along the streets and people will volunteer their time to pick up litter. I do have several HOAs that already participate in the program. We provide supplies for litter cleanup, and there are also opportunities for other supply and beautification supplies available, such as maybe bush honeysuckle removal. So I do have information about that here as well. And I would recommend take a look at it. I really enjoy working with HOAs when it comes to their common grounds because I know they can be a source of frustration, but they definitely don't have to be. So give me a call and I'd be more than happy to talk about this with any of you. I think do I have time for quick questions? Okay, some questions, please. Yes. Any others? Okay, well, maybe I'll see you in the back afterwards. Have a nice evening.
All right, item number 5 here on tonight's program, we have our Director of Public Works, Sue Spiegel. She's going to speak to us a little bit on our chipper program within the city. And she's also got some comments associated with traffic flow and management software that the city uses. It's really interesting to kind of hear some of these workings, and Sue will go into some more detail. Welcome, Sue.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out to come and join us tonight. It's really good to see such a turnout. Hope that you're learning something. Particularly, I think it was enjoyable to hear about the insurance and how to take care of HOA meetings and that sort of thing. What I want to talk to you tonight about is a couple of little known maybe facts that are maybe different here in Wentzville than they are if you've lived somewhere else, either in St. Charles County or elsewhere. City of Wentzville has what we call a chipper program. You'll see it on our website if you search for Wentzville Spring and Fall Chipper Program. We do it twice a year. We go through the community by ward. This is really not part of your Meridian waste collection. Some of the residents have yard waste collection through Meridian, but the rules for the chipper program are a little bit different. So our spring 2023 chipper program, Ward 1 is going to be the week of April 10th. Ward 2 then is the next week of April 17th. Ward 3 is the week of April 24th. It is for tree limbs of the size of not to exceed 6 inches. A tree limb is defined as something that's 2 to 6 inches in length. And you don't really have to trim them down. You can leave them almost as long as possible and just put the cut end closest to the street, but do it in a way that doesn't block the sidewalk. If you have tree branches, those are the pieces that would be smaller than 2 inches in diameter. The difference between what you do with the branches when it's the chipper program versus if it's Meridian is for the tree branches, we don't want them to be tied or bound in any way. We would like them stacked loosely. You can cut them to lengths of 6 feet and just stack them together. And again, don't block the sidewalk with tree branches. So this program is done twice a year by our street division. We chip these branches up. It's really for the residents who are doing their own tree branch trimming or landscape trimming. It's not intended for you to hire a contractor to cut down very large trees on your property or even to prune the trees on your property and then to leave the debris for us. And I say that because sometimes we get a little overwhelmed. This is a program just done by our in-house crew. We've only got 3 weeks in the spring and 3 weeks in the fall, and we have to go through the whole community, and there are 15,000 residents or homes in the community. So it's a big job for us. Once in a while, HOAs also have to trim trees on their property. And again, it's really only intended for your single family individual homeowners who are taking care of their own landscaping. So if you're an HOA and you do have a lot of trees to take care of, we would recommend that you hire a contractor and have that contractor remove the debris for you. We're very environmentally conscious with the chippings that we pick up. We use them and turn it into a mulch that we're able to use at our facility for other purposes. It goes to good use. So we do encourage you to use it, but it also, you're limited to, not including root balls or anything that's unusual, because what we're picking up has to go through a chipper unit. So does anybody have any questions on that? I've got a couple of handouts. The information again is also available on the website if you just search Spring and Fall Chipper Program for Wentzville, but the handouts are up here if you want to take one. Yes, sir. Not normally. We really just encourage you to go ahead and put it out the first day of the week. We go through all of the streets at least once. If you did put it out and you feel like we've missed you, and give us a call, we can try to get back there. But again, it's a solid 6 weeks. We've got so much work to do in the street department. We're actually expanding our pothole patching program. I'm glad to hear you're all happy about that. Yeah, a lot of our concrete pavements have reached middle age. You might have noticed that we are having a whole lot more to do. Our warmer winters are actually harder on us because there's more freeze thaw cycles, and it's not easy on our pavements. So this year we're buying a second patch machine, and we will be doubling our crews in that area. But that also means that we really need to stick to 3 weeks in the spring and fall for chipper programs. So The other thing that's kind of a little known fact for some of us who maybe moved over to St. Charles County from St. Louis County, and you don't really maybe notice it, but we have a fabulous interconnected traffic signal system in St. Charles County. It's called Gateway Green Light. It's actually a program that's been going on for maybe 10 years or more. It was started through St. Charles County. They have a lot of good information on their website. You can actually send them concerns about any traffic signal anywhere in St. Charles County at ggl@sccmo.org. So the very cool thing about it is every single signal in Wentzville is that Wentzville owns and operates, and the MoDOT ones are all interconnected with that system. Wentzville Parkway has most of the traffic signals in Wentzville, not all of them, but most of them. And that corridor is a coordinated corridor, or it's optimized so that the traffic signals are set up to turn green in a fashion that allows the most cars to get through on the parkway. It's really pretty cool. We manage over 60,000 cars a day through some parts of the parkway in a pretty safe manner. The enhancements to that program recently that they're still working on, I don't believe that they're in effect yet, but they will be soon, is there will be first responder preemption, so that if you're on the parkway and there's a lot of traffic and there's a fire truck coming up behind you, you don't know what to do about it, the signals will be picking up that fire truck, and they'll go ahead and turn green, go out of cycle, turn green, and give the fire truck the green light so everybody can get through and get out of their way. It's really going to be helpful. I think ambulances, police, fire, they're even going to let Public Works snowplow trucks have preemption at traffic signals. So it's really, yeah, really cool. I'm sorry. They're working on that program now, rolling it out in different parts of St. Charles County. I would say, I'm guessing about a year, maybe 2 years before it would become pretty common everywhere, and you'll start noticing it everywhere in St. Charles County. They are also, there was some questions about, the flock cameras that were being proposed or offered to the individual HOAs. And that is, sometimes a big piece of the budget. If you're a small HOA, I know ours is a smaller HOA, and we just didn't feel like we could quite manage that. But I did want you to know that Wentzville has a very robust plan, and 18 of these cameras are already in place on the major arteries in the community and on the entranceways into the community. And you might not have caught it, but the police officers were saying that if a car enters, the perimeter of Wentzville, they've got a beat on it. It hits their phones, and they're able to track it pretty well through the community by way of the city's flock cameras. Now, there are some larger subdivisions, or maybe a subdivision that is experiencing, maybe more difficulty with crime than others, that wants to enhance it, and that's fine. But I just wanted to make sure you knew that Wentzville did have a very robust program with the flock cameras, and it's doing a great job of improving our safety and our security in our community as well. There are some enhancements that are coming along with our traffic signal cameras that probably are maybe 2 to 3 years down the road. We're going to be introducing artificial intelligence, believe it or not, into our traffic cameras. Have gotten such good high quality imaging now that there are programs that are able to take that data and run massive amounts of traffic engineering calculations and help us optimize. They're doing our work for us. They're going to help us optimize those signals. Right now, our coordinated signal set on Wentzville Parkway gets reviewed and optimized by hand manually once every couple of years. With this program that they're actually testing it at one of the signals in Wentzville right now, but once we get it deployed, that artificial intelligence will be offering us the opportunity to optimize every month, every week. You just walk in the morning and they give you some ideas and you say, yes, let's do that. Let's make it faster and better. So it's very exciting. You know, the traffic engineer nerd in me thinks that's really cool. And it's head and shoulders above what's going on in other counties. St. Charles County is just very advanced in that respect. So is there any other questions about traffic signals? Veterans Memorial. Yeah, that is a challenging location right now for those of us that have to go down Veterans Memorial to get across into Wentzville Parkway. That project is on schedule. It's actually slightly ahead of schedule, and I'm told that it's maybe 4 to 6 weeks away from them being able to move traffic over to new pavement, as long as we continue with this warm weather and we don't hit a very heavy rainy spot. So hang in there. They are planning to do a little bit of patching on the road. It's gotten pretty rough through there. Yes. Yes. I sure wish they'd have gotten to patching that before this meeting, but oh well.
My daughter was almost in an accident. Someone pulling out right there where they have the water, like right there where you go in the movie. He's got the right of way on interstate, someone's pulling out there. I don't know if there's anything that can be done there to. There's no point. Trying that out.
I'll take a look at it. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That is, yes. That is probably what I would recommend to you as well. It is very challenging. They're not trying to make it hard on all of us. It's just extremely tight workspace, and they really are working at getting done as soon as they can. Absolutely. There are definitely times when making a right-hand turn and going a little bit further is absolutely what I would recommend. I do it myself all the time. That left-hand turn is a more dangerous move. Well, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I haven't tried to go in and out at that particular location myself, but I'll write a note and talk to the project manager and see if there's some additional signage or recommendations that we can do for you there. So, sure. Yes, ma'am. Well, traffic signals you used to have to get into the box to change a traffic signal. And we do still have our own in-house crew in the Public Works Department that they have the keys to the box, and they go in and do the maintenance and replacement and repair. But you don't have to be at the box to adjust what the box is telling the signal to do. That's all managed remotely now, either on a cell phone, believe it or not, on a cell phone, or through a traffic management center down at St. Charles County. So if you do see somebody in the box, they're probably, replacing a piece or a part that's bad, rather than adjusting the signal timing on the signals. The last thing I did want to mention to you is Public Works is building a new building on Interstate Drive. Some of you may be driving up and down Interstate and noticing trees disappearing just east of the intersection of Wilmer and Interstate. And that is our in-house street division. We have to comply with the DNR requirements for cutting trees down in a certain window so that bat habitat, so bats don't make those trees their nesting for the spring and summer. So we have until March 31st to finish cutting those trees, and that's why it's being done that way, a little bit in advance of the actual construction project. That project we did get bids back on February 16th. We got 5 bids that were all very favorable. They're below the cost estimate. So we are planning to be able to successfully recommend award, and it's been put on the agenda for the next board meeting next week. We're hopeful if things go well with that, we'll get the bonding taken care of, and the project should go active, a lot more active than it has been. About mid-April, we are looking at it being about a 2-year project. It's very big. The bond will be $29 million. So there's a whole lot of fleet maintenance, operation facilities, a lot of office space, salt storage. It's really going to give us what Wentzville needs to be able to serve the citizens, do the snow plowing, take care of the roads the way you're wanting us to take care of the roads. Yes, ma'am. We're getting close to being about done. I did just walk it this morning, and they're starting to finish off all the way to the clearing limit on the west end. Probably what we're going to do is meet individually with the homeowners that are immediately adjacent to us and have a conversation about exactly what is going to happen behind their homes. Right. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Okay. We could talk afterwards if you would like. I'm happy to do that. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you got it. You got it. Yeah. So, okay. All right. I guess I'm done. I did want to give my shout out is for Meridian and for Tina, who's in the back of the room. If you ever call with a solid waste question or concern, her very kind voice will be on the other end of the phone taking care of you. And the Meridian team here is working really hard to do a good job for you as well. So thank you.
All right, so we're nearing the end of the program. Just wanted to offer a comment that we are recording tonight's event. So if you wanted to get onto the city's website, if you missed something or you wanted to hear something Stephen said again, or however, or get in touch with folks, the community development page of the Wentzville website. Steve, it'll be a couple of days, I guess, right, for that gets out there, but just know that that's available to you. Basically, we call this an open house format now. So Matt Wolberg is back, our Director of Engineering. Put your hand up, Matt. There's old Matt. And he knows everything about transportation in the whole city. Doug Lee, City Administrator, knows more than anybody around here. He's been here the longest. Anyway, there's all kinds of booths and tables back here. We can pull some chairs out if it gets kind of cumbersome for walking around, but go visit with folks. We actually have a new software program that we're going to implement in our community development department for permitting, for new houses, for decks, for pools, planning and zoning applications, business licensing, all that kind of stuff. It's called SmartGov. So it's all automated. We as St. Charles County cities, we're about the last one to kind of go paperless. So that is something that we're moving forward on. We'll go live within a month or so. It'll be a little bit of a weird transition for folks to get used to, but you'll be able to track all your inspections and see how your permit's doing just from your mobile device. So it's very interactive, very transparent. So I think it's a very good improvement for, the city's business, just to kind of keep permits moving and keep you in the know, which, you're anxious to get that fence built and things like that. So thank you so much for being here. Hope you learned something. Stephen's still here, Kathy's here. Why don't you just make yourself happy to walk around and see the tables? Go ahead, man. No, just under fair housing laws and just general public zoning, anyone can own or rent a home. And so it's not necessarily illegal to rent a home, but we don't really have statistics in that regard.